After 20 years of friendship and loyalty, my boss Marcus stabbed me in the back and fired me without warning. But what he didn't know was that 3 weeks earlier, I'd discovered his $50 million secret hidden in his office safe. Now, as security escorted me out with my cardboard box of belongings, I smiled knowing that by tomorrow night, his entire world would come crashing down. My name is David Mitchell, and I learned the hard way that 20 years of friendship means nothing when money gets involved. Marcus Henderson sat behind his mahogany desk, the same desk where his father used to give me advice when I was just starting out in this business. But the man across from me wasn't the college buddy who'd been my best man or the friend who'd helped me through my divorce 3 years ago. "David, we're making some structural changes," he said, his voice flat and businesslike. His eyes wouldn't meet mine, instead focusing on the papers spread across his desk. "The board met last night. Your position is being eliminated." I felt the air leave my lungs. 20 years at Henderson Manufacturing. 2 decades of building this company from a small Detroit operation into a $200 million business. I turned down headhunter calls just last month because I believed in loyalty, believed in what we were building together. "Marcus, what are you talking about?" I managed to say. "The Peterson contract I just closed brought in $12 million. Our best quarter in company history." He shuffled the papers again, still avoiding eye contact. "It's not about performance. The market's changing. We need to adapt." That's when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. On his computer screen was a resignation letter with my name already typed at the top. This wasn't a discussion about restructuring. This was an execution, and he'd already written my death sentence. "I need your security badge and office keys," he continued, finally looking up. His face was stone cold, like I was a stranger he'd never met. "HR will handle the paperwork." As I walked through the factory floor for what I thought was the last time, employees stopped their work to stare. Word travels fast in a place like this. These were people I'd hired, trained, promoted. Some had been here almost as long as I had. Now they watched me carry a cardboard box toward the exit like I was some kind of criminal. But Marcus had made one critical mistake. 3 weeks ago, he trusted me with something he shouldn't have. Something that would make this firing look like a parking ticket compared to what was coming for him. In his panic to catch a flight, he'd given me the combination to his private safe and asked me to retrieve an important document. What I found in that safe wasn't just important. It was explosive. As security escorted me through the lobby, I passed the conference room where Marcus was already meeting with someone new. A young man in an expensive suit who looked barely old enough to shave, let alone run a department. The nameplate being installed on what used to be my office door read, "James Henderson, Marcus's nephew, fresh out of business school with 0 experience." The pieces were falling into place, but Marcus had no idea I'd already seen the whole picture. Because hidden in my jacket pocket was evidence that would destroy not just his career, but his freedom. 3 weeks earlier, I'd been working late on the Peterson proposal when Marcus burst into my office looking like he'd seen a ghost. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, and his hands were actually shaking as he grabbed my shoulders. "David, I need your help," he said, his voice tight with panic. "I left something critical in my office safe, and I've got a flight to catch in 2 hours. The combination is 0418 Emma's birthday. Can you grab the merger proposal and lock it back up?" I'd never seen him this rattled. Marcus was always the calm one, the guy who could smooth-talk investors and handle board meetings like he was born for it. But standing in my office that night, he looked terrified. "Of course," I said. "Which proposal?" "The one in the manila folder. You'll see it. Just grab it and text me when it's secure." After he left, I made my way to his corner office. The safe was hidden behind a family photo of him, his wife Sarah, and their daughter Emma. I punched in the combination and heard the heavy click as it opened. Inside were the usual things you'd expect: important contracts, insurance policies, his father's old watch. But underneath everything else was a thick manila folder labeled Project Clearwater, in Marcus's handwriting. I pulled out what I thought was the merger proposal he needed, but something else caught my eye. Financial statements showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. Bank routing numbers I didn't recognize. And then I saw the letterhead that made my blood freeze: Titan Industries, our biggest competitor. My hands started shaking as I flipped through page after page of documents. Detailed blueprints of our manufacturing processes. Client lists with pricing information. Internal memos about upcoming product launches. Everything that gave Henderson Manufacturing its competitive edge was being sold to the enemy. The payments totaled $8.7 million over 2 years. But it wasn't just industrial espionage. The final document was a merger agreement showing that Titan would acquire Henderson within 18 months. Marcus would walk away with a $50 million golden parachute, while every single employee would be laid off. I sat in his leather chair, staring at the proof that my best friend was destroying everything his father had built. The man I trusted with my career, my future, my loyalty, was planning to throw away 800 jobs for money. But what really twisted the knife was seeing the signature on the final page. This wasn't some corporate decision made in a boardroom. Marcus had been planning this betrayal for years, slowly selling us out piece by piece while pretending to be the concerned CEO fighting for the company's future. I photographed every document with my phone, then carefully placed everything back exactly as I'd found it. When I texted Marcus that the proposal was secure, he responded immediately. "You're a lifesaver. I owe you one." If only he knew how much he was about to owe me. Sitting in my driveway after being fired, I pulled out my phone and dialed a number I'd been avoiding for months. Jessica Rodriguez, investigative reporter for the Detroit Business Journal, had been calling me regularly about suspicious corporate mergers in the automotive industry. I'd always brushed her off out of loyalty to Marcus. That loyalty had just cost me my career. "David Mitchell," she answered before I could speak. "I was wondering when you'd finally call me back. I think I have something you'll want to see," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But we need to meet in person. Tonight." An hour later, we sat in a corner booth at Murphy's Diner, 20 miles outside Detroit. Jessica was younger than I'd expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. I slid a flash drive across the sticky table. "Everything's on there," I said. "Financial records, merger documents, offshore bank accounts. Marcus Henderson has been selling our company's secrets to Titan Industries for 2 years. Her laptop screen reflected in her glasses as she scrolled through the files. "David, this is massive. We're talking about securities fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, possibly racketeering. But I need more than documents. Can you get me proof of an active transaction?" I leaned back in the worn vinyl booth, thinking. "There's a meeting tomorrow night. Marcus thinks firing me eliminated the threat, but I still have building access through the old security system I helped design 5 years ago." "What kind of meeting?" "The final handoff. Marcus is delivering the last batch of proprietary files to Robert Kane, Titan's CEO. If we can record that exchange, you'll have direct evidence of corporate espionage." Jessica closed the laptop and studied my face. "David, if you're caught doing this, you could face criminal charges. Are you sure you want to risk it?" I thought about the 800 employees who had no idea their jobs were being sold out from under them. People like Susan in accounting who'd worked here for 15 years to put her kids through college. Tom on the assembly line who was 3 years from retirement. They deserved to know the truth. "I'm sure," I said. When I got home, my wife Linda was waiting at the kitchen table with 2 cups of coffee and a worried expression. I told her everything: the documents, Marcus's betrayal, my plan for tomorrow night. She listened without interrupting, her anger building with each revelation. 20 years of friendship," she said finally, shaking her head. "How could he do this to you? To everyone who trusted him?" "I don't know," I replied. "But tomorrow night, I'm going to find out exactly how deep this goes." What I didn't tell her was something I'd discovered in those documents that made this betrayal even worse. Marcus wasn't working alone. The merger papers showed a second signature from someone else inside Henderson Manufacturing, someone who'd been helping him all along. At 9 o'clock the next night, I used my old security codes to slip through the loading dock entrance of Henderson Manufacturing. My access should have been revoked hours after my termination, but Marcus had been too focused on celebrating my departure to handle the technical details. That oversight was about to cost him everything. I moved quietly through the darkened hallways, past my old office where James Henderson's nameplate now hung on the door. The building felt different at night, hollow, like it was holding its breath. I made my way to the executive conference room on the top floor, where I'd hidden a small recording device earlier that afternoon during a quick visit to retrieve personal items. Through the frosted glass window, I could see Marcus pacing back and forth, checking his expensive watch every few seconds. His usual confidence was replaced by nervous energy, and I realized this meeting was just as dangerous for him as it was for me. At 9:15 sharp, Robert Kane walked in with two assistants carrying briefcases. Kane was everything you'd expect from a corporate predator: silver hair, tailored suit, cold eyes that calculated profit in human suffering. But the real shock came when the third person entered the room. Patricia Wells, our chief financial officer, strode in like she owned the place. I felt my world tilt sideways. Patricia had been with Henderson for 12 years, always positioned herself as the voice of fiscal responsibility, the one person on the executive team who supposedly kept Marcus's ambitious spending in check. She'd even criticized the Peterson contract publicly, calling it too aggressive for our current market position. "Do you have the final batch?" Kane asked without any small talk or pleasantries. Marcus slid a leather briefcase across the polished conference table. "Everything you requested. Manufacturing specifications, client databases, employee performance reviews, upcoming product launch schedules. After tomorrow's announcement, Henderson Manufacturing will be finished as an independent company." Kane opened the briefcase and examined the contents like a shopper checking produce. "Excellent. And the board of directors?" Patricia actually laughed at the question. "Those old fools still think we're considering a strategic partnership to expand our market reach. By the time they understand what's really happening, the merger will be signed and they'll have no choice but to approve it or face shareholder lawsuits." "What about David Mitchell?" Kane asked, and my blood turned to ice. "Your intelligence reports said he knows our operations better than anyone. Could he cause problems?" Marcus waved dismissively. "Already handled. Terminated him yesterday morning. He was getting too close to some financial irregularities in the Peterson account." My mind raced. The Peterson contract, the $12 million deal I'd closed just last month, was part of their scheme. They'd been using it to justify the merger, claiming Henderson needed Titan's resources to handle such large projects. Every success I'd achieved had been twisted into evidence of our company's weakness. Kane nodded approvingly. "Smart move. Mitchell's reputation in the industry could have rallied opposition if he'd discovered the truth. What's his severance situation?" "Standard package," Patricia replied, consulting her tablet. 2 weeks' pay, basic health insurance continuation. Nothing that would raise suspicions about why we really needed him gone. The casual way they discussed destroying my career made my hands clench into fists. 20 years of dedication reduced to a line item in their conspiracy. But then Kane said something that made me forget my personal anger entirely. "Once tomorrow's announcement goes public, we need to move quickly on the other targets. The FBI has been investigating our acquisition methods in Ohio and Michigan. This needs to be the last deal we close using insider cooperation." The FBI was already investigating Titan Industries. Which meant I wasn't just recording evidence of corporate fraud, I was documenting an active federal case. These people weren't just criminals, they were part of a pattern that law enforcement was already tracking. As they continued planning the destruction of my company, I realized the scope was even bigger than I'd imagined. Kane bragged about acquiring 6 other manufacturing companies using identical methods over the past 3 years. Plant an accomplice inside the target company, steal trade secrets over time, then force a merger through manufactured financial crisis. Each acquisition had destroyed hundreds of jobs while making Kane's investors millions. But Patricia's next words revealed just how deep this conspiracy went. "The timing is perfect. she said, pulling up financial projections on her laptop. Our quarterly reports show exactly the profit margins we need to justify the acquisition price. The board will see merger as the only way to maintain growth. She'd been manipulating Henderson's financial reports for months, creating artificial problems that made Titan's takeover look like salvation instead of theft. Every budget meeting where she'd warned about cash flow problems, every presentation about market challenges, all of it had been theater designed to make the board desperate enough to accept any deal. As I crept back through the dark hallways toward the exit, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or face the consequences. Someone else knew I was investigating, and they weren't playing games anymore. I didn't sleep a single minute that night, and by 5 a.m. I was sitting in an all-night diner downtown, waiting for someone I'd never met but who might be my only hope. Tom Bradley had been calling me for weeks, leaving voicemails about important information regarding Titan Industries. I'd ignored him completely, thinking he was just another headhunter or sales guy. Now I realized he might be the key to everything. When a silver-haired man in his 60s walked through the diner door and scanned the room, I knew it was him. Tom Bradley moved with the careful confidence of someone who'd built and lost companies, who understood corporate warfare from personal experience. With him was a woman in a dark business suit who immediately set off my law enforcement radar. David Mitchell, Tom said, sliding into the booth across from me. This is FBI Special Agent Sarah Collins. She's been investigating Titan Industries for the past 8 months. Agent Collins placed a small recording device on the table between us. Mr. Mitchell, what you recorded last night isn't just evidence of corporate fraud. It's the missing piece of a federal investigation that spans 12 states and involves over 40 companies. I felt the diner walls closing in around me. 40 companies? Tom leaned forward, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Titan destroyed my son's manufacturing business in Phoenix 18 months ago using the exact same playbook they're using on Henderson. Inside accomplice, stolen trade secrets, forced merger. But we couldn't prove conspiracy until now. Agent Collins opened a thick folder filled with financial documents and corporate filings. Robert Kane has been running this scheme for 5 years. He identifies struggling mid-size manufacturers, plants someone inside their financial department, then systematically steals everything that makes them competitive. The target company becomes dependent on artificially inflated contracts that Titan controls, then gets absorbed when they can't meet the debt obligations. But how does he get people like Patricia to betray their own companies? I asked. Money, Tom said bitterly. Patricia Wells received $2.7 million over the past year through a consulting firm she doesn't know is owned by Kane. She thinks she's just providing market analysis, but every report she files gives Titan more ammunition for the takeover. Agent Collins pulled out surveillance photos showing Patricia meeting with Kane at expensive restaurants across Detroit. We've been tracking these meetings for months, but we needed proof of active conspiracy. Your recording gives us that. I stared at the photos, seeing Patricia's smiling face as she shook hands with the man who was planning to destroy 800 jobs. What happens now? Now we need your help to make sure they don't destroy evidence, Agent Collins said. Can you get us access to Henderson's financial servers? I nodded slowly. I designed most of our security systems. Marcus was too arrogant to think I'd fight back. But as I agreed to help the FBI, my phone rang. Marcus's name appeared on the screen, and I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Agent Collins motioned for me to answer and put it on speaker. David, thank God you picked up, Marcus said, his voice strained with false cheerfulness. I've been thinking about yesterday, and I realize we handled things poorly. There might be a position for you at Titan Industries. Robert Kane was genuinely impressed by your work on the Peterson account. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything I'd heard, he was trying to buy my silence with a job at the company that had been stealing our secrets. But I kept my voice calm and professional. That's interesting, Marcus. What kind of position? Senior consultant role. Significant salary increase, stock options, the works. Kane thinks your inside knowledge of manufacturing processes could be valuable for their expansion plans. Agent Collins was scribbling notes, furiously. Tom's face had gone pale with anger. They were literally offering me a job helping them destroy other companies the way they destroyed Henderson. I'll need to think about it, I said carefully. Of course, take your time. But David, I hope you understand that business decisions sometimes seem harsh but are necessary for long-term success. I'd hate for any misunderstandings to damage our friendship. After I hung up, Agent Collins leaned back in her seat. He's offering you a bribe and threatening you at the same time. Classic corporate intimidation. Tom was shaking his head in disgust. They tried the same thing with my son. Offered him a consulting contract right after they destroyed his company. When he refused, they made sure he couldn't get hired anywhere else in the industry. But we're not going to let that happen to you, Agent Collins said firmly. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, we're executing simultaneous raids on Titan Industries, Henderson Manufacturing, and Patricia Wells' home address. We'll need you to be at Henderson to provide technical support for accessing encrypted files. As we prepared to leave the diner, Tom grabbed my arm. David, these people destroyed my family's business and ruined my son's career. But you have a chance to stop them before they do it to anyone else. That recording you made last night is going to put Kane in federal prison for 20 years. Walking to my car, I felt something I hadn't experienced since being fired: hope. For the first time in 48 hours, I wasn't fighting this battle alone. But I also knew that the next few hours would determine whether justice would be served or whether Marcus and his conspirators would find a way to escape the consequences of their greed. My phone buzzed with another text from that unknown number. Last warning? Back off now or face serious consequences. But it was too late for warnings. The FBI was already moving, and by tonight, everyone would know exactly who the real criminals were. At exactly 2 o'clock that afternoon, I stood in the Henderson Manufacturing parking lot watching FBI agents stream through the front entrance while employees gathered at windows trying to understand what was happening. Agent Collins had positioned me near the loading dock with a laptop connected to the company's secure network, ready to help decrypt files that Marcus and Patricia thought they'd hidden forever. David, we're accessing the main financial database now, Agent Collins said through my earpiece. Can you guide us to the offshore account records? My fingers moved across the keyboard with muscle memory built over 20 years. Third folder down, labeled International Partnerships. The real files are hidden behind a password protection system I helped design 3 years ago. Inside the building, I could see Marcus being led away in handcuffs, his expensive suit wrinkled and his face pale with shock. Through the conference room windows, FBI agents were photographing every document, while Patricia Wells sat at the table, no longer the confident executive who'd laughed about destroying people's lives. Agent Collins emerged from the building carrying several boxes of evidence. We found everything, David. Bank records showing $8.7 million in payments to offshore accounts, email chains proving the conspiracy, even backup files Marcus thought he'd deleted. But the real surprise came when Robert Kane was arrested at Titan Industries. Unlike Marcus and Patricia, Kane didn't go quietly. Security cameras captured him screaming about government overreach and claiming he was just conducting legitimate business acquisitions. The contrast was striking. While my former boss had crumbled under pressure, the mastermind behind the scheme was showing his true colors as a man who believed rules didn't apply to him. By 4 o'clock, local news trucks had arrived. Jessica Rodriguez was broadcasting live from the Henderson parking lot, explaining how an employee's discovery of corporate fraud had uncovered a multi-state conspiracy. I watched from my car as she interviewed Tom Bradley, who spoke passionately about justice finally being served for companies like his son's that had been destroyed by Kane's schemes. My phone rang constantly: reporters, competitors, even headhunters who'd somehow gotten word that I was available. But the call that mattered came from Robert Chin, chairman of Henderson's board of directors. David, the board has been in emergency session since the arrests began, he said. We need to talk immediately about stabilizing the company. An hour later, I sat in the same conference room where I'd been fired just 2 days earlier. The board members looked shell-shocked, trying to process how close they'd come to losing everything they'd worked to build. The merger with Titan is obviously cancelled, Chen said. All contracts signed by Marcus or Patricia in the past year are being reviewed by our legal team. But we need immediate leadership to prevent panic among employees and customers. Board member Elizabeth Torres leaned forward. David, we know we treated you badly. Marcus convinced us that restructuring was necessary for competitiveness. We had no idea he was planning to sell the company out from under us. What are you proposing? I asked. Chen placed a contract on the table. Interim CEO position, with full authority to make operational decisions. The FBI says stolen assets will be recovered, but we need someone who understands every aspect of our business to guide us through this crisis. I looked around the room at executives who'd approved my termination 48 hours earlier. Some appeared genuinely remorseful, others just desperate to save their own positions. But behind their corporate desperation was something more important: 800 employees who needed leadership through the chaos Marcus had created. I'll do it, I said. But with conditions. Over the next 6 months, Henderson Manufacturing not only survived but flourished under new leadership focused on transparency and employee welfare. The Peterson contract led to 5 additional major deals worth over $60 million. Our stock price doubled as investors gained confidence in our ethical business practices. Marcus received 15 years in federal prison for conspiracy, fraud, and racketeering. Patricia got 12 years and was ordered to forfeit all assets purchased with stolen money. Robert Kane drew 25 years and faced civil lawsuits from 43 companies seeking damages for his systematic destruction of American manufacturing businesses. At the company holiday party, Tom Bradley raised a toast to everyone who'd fought back against corporate corruption. His son had received a settlement that allowed him to restart his business, and 3 other companies destroyed by Kane's schemes were being rebuilt with recovered assets. Linda found me on the factory floor afterward, watching employees celebrate with their families. Any regrets about how this all played out? She asked. I looked around at people who still had jobs because we'd refused to let greed triumph over justice. Susan in accounting was planning her daughter's wedding with the security of knowing her position was safe. Tom from the assembly line was looking forward to retirement with his pension intact. None at all, I said. Sometimes the people who try to bury you just end up digging their own graves. Marcus had thought firing me would eliminate the biggest threat to his scheme. Instead, it created the one person with nothing left to lose and everything necessary to bring him down. 20 years of loyalty had taught me how to build systems that protected companies from threats I just never imagined I'd use those skills to protect Henderson from its own CEO. The company that Marcus tried to destroy was now stronger than ever, built on the foundation of accountability he tried so hard to avoid.